following podcast has not been rated. You're listening to Second String Podcast, and here's your host, CJ Newman.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the debut edition of the Second String Podcast. As the lovely intro told you, my name is CJ Newman, and I'm your host. I'm here to excite you and to delight you in the world of football, so I'm going to go ahead and break down the nuts and bolts of how this podcast is going to work. Most podcast hosts like to go out of their way to find celebrities, sports stars, and otherwise famous people to come on the show just to ask them questions that are, let's face it, going to be artistically dodged. I'm veering away from that protocol. I'm going to go out of my way to get a football podcast going where you, the fans, are going to help me run this show. I want to first get in touch with my friends and family across the nation who represent each of the football teams in the NFL, whether that's the Oakland Raiders, the Denver Broncos, the LA Rams, the New England Patriots. But let's face facts, that's going to drive quick because I don't have too many friends. After I cycle through my friends and family, I'm going to open up the floor to the followers of the podcast. We'll talk football every week, whether it's the NFL, the CFL, the Alliance of American Football that's coming up next season, and the return of one of my favorites, the XFL. After I cycle through all those friends, I'm going to open it up to you, the followers of the podcast. I'll see if I can get some legitimate interviews going on with as many people as I know, but don't get me wrong. If a celebrity or football player wants to give me their time, I will interview them, just for the entertainment. But as far as I'm concerned, the friends and family and the fans are the priority at this point. I feel like we can learn a lot about the culture of every team just by talking to the fans. This is the debut edition, so we're going to open it up to a person that I met through Twitter, actually, via a member of the what is called the PFT PM Posse. So just to make sure you guys are aware, the PFT PM podcast is actually where the posse comes from. The PFT PM podcast is a show that is made by Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk and NBC Sports that he puts together a couple times a week, as best he possibly can. Sometimes he veers off and does his other things. So without further ado, a recorded conversation that I had with Tyler Forness, fan of the Minnesota Vikings. Tyler, welcome to the Second String Podcast. How you doing today, man?
You know what? I'm doing really good, CJ. How are you doing today?
I'm alright. So this is the debut edition, and I chose you because, quite frankly, you've been a part of the PFTPM posse, and I was just explaining in my intro that that is one hell of a group that we got going on there, and I wanted to interview you first because you've been one of the most vocal out there.
Well, I appreciate that. The PFTPM posse is a pretty cool group, and it's really cool how it became so organic over the last couple of months.
That is quite true, and I've just been silently in the background for the most part, just reading these questions that the posse's put together, but I've definitely been starting to contribute a lot more lately, and I'm definitely very appreciative of the group. So I picked you out because, quite frankly, we both like the color purple. Let's face facts. So you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, correct?
Yep, I've born and raised in Minnesota. I've been a Vikings fan since before I could walk.
Wow, that's impressive. What was your first jersey that you can remember having from the Vikings?
The first jersey I remember having, I was actually really upset when I got it. It was 98, and I was 8 years old, and I was a Randy Moss fan while he was in college. And my dad bought us all jerseys, and he got me Jake Reed.
Oh.
And I like Jake Reed, don't get me wrong, but I was upset because I really wanted that Moss jersey. And my brother got it, of course, so there was some animosity there.
I can hear you. The Randy Moss is definitely something that I would appreciate. Did you appreciate him more in his first run or the second run? I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but go ahead and tell me.
Honestly, I appreciated him more with his time with the Patriots than I did with the Vikings, just because I was older and I could really understand the game more and just appreciated what he's able to do. But let me tell you, being a 10-year-old kid and seeing Moss just do the things he was doing in purple with what he had to work with was pretty special.
I agree with that. And whenever I see Randy Moss in the older games and I don't see him on 99 speed, I get pissed off, let me tell you, because that guy was a burner.
Oh, he was incredible. There are rumors of guys like Deion Sanders running a 4.1 40. Moss would have been up there. His straight line speed was just downright nasty.
Yeah, the combine didn't exactly exist back then as far as like the running the 40, did it?
I can't remember when they started the 40, but I do remember in '89 when Deion came out that he did run the 40, and that's all he did. There's a story of he arrived in a limo, ran the 40, and then left.
Yeah, I can also remember like some of the teams that were later on trying to get him to come in for an interview, but they were like drafting 20 or something like that. He's like, I'm not going to be there by the time you're drafting, so I'm not even going to bother interviewing with you. Talking about a prima donna. But let's get right into it, man. Your team had a hell of a season this past season. If I'm not mistaken, they embarrassed the Packers twice. I can remember the Packers got blanked by two purple teams this past season as far as being shut out. Can you tell me much about that second game?
The second game I did get to watch. The second game was really a story about how the Vikings offense was just sputtering. Obviously, Hundley couldn't do anything. The defense really held him down. But they did put together some drives. They just couldn't get anything on the scoreboard. Vikings offense just missed opportunity after opportunity. It should have been more than a 16-0 game. It should have been like 35-0.
I don't disagree with that. Who was the quarterback for that game?
That was Case Keenum for the Vikings and Hundley for the Packers. But the Vikings just kept missing opportunities. They were just like a foot off on a bunch of like deep throws and just little things that the chemistry just wasn't there.
Yeah, I think Case started to develop slightly after that game, though. He really became, God, just seeing Case Keenum develop over the past year was just amazing to me, because I can remember him being like a backup for the other teams. Like, I think he was a backup for the Rams, and he was just not there. I mean, he did exactly what he was supposed to be doing, and that was being a backup, but seeing him perform this past year, just getting outside of the pocket and making stuff happen, and just looking down the field at all times, it's just an amazing thing to watch from him this past season.
Oh, absolutely. I've been a fan of Case Keenum since he was playing in Houston with the run and shoot. The one interesting thing about Case Keenum is that he, how do I phrase this? He's not going to be the guy to raise the talent around him, but working within the talent, he's top notch. And as you saw him with Thielen and Diggs, one of the top 5 receiver duos in the NFL, played very well. He's very good at maneuvering inside the pocket, and he can make plays. But there are those 1 or 2 throws a game where it's just like, dude, this isn't Pop Warner. You've got to play smart. And that's one of the reasons why Vikings fans love Teddy Bridgewater so much. He wasn't super dynamic. He didn't have the flashy numbers, but he didn't make mistakes.
That's very true. He didn't throw too many interceptions back when he was healthy and on the field. But we could say the same thing about actually, I think Bradford was probably more of a gunslinger compared to the other ones. I think he had a bit of a higher interception rate, and I'm quite frankly, I don't know how much longer I'm going to see Bradford on the field. That guy, he gets sacked way too much, and he's about as fragile as glass.
Yeah. If Bradford wasn't fragile as glass, if he would have stayed healthy with the Vikings, we could be talking about him as a top 10 quarterback, maybe even a top 5. Just the sample size from that Saints game was probably the best the quarterback played all season.
That was his best game. I mean, Florio was talking about it in his PFT Live. He said that was the best game that Bradford has ever played.
Oh, no doubt. I was at that game, and everything was just pinpoint accurate. From 20-plus yards, he was 100%. I believe he was 7 for 7. He had over 80% completions, and his passer rating was like 153 on a 158.3 scale. It was really fun to watch.
All right, speaking of that game, you got to tell me, man. I mean, you have one of the best running backs in the history of the NFL. How awkward was it seeing him on the other sideline?
Honestly, it wasn't nearly as awkward as I thought. He did not get a very warm reception, though.
Oh, yeah. I figured the water was not going to be very warm for him when he was jumping in there.
Yeah, I don't know how much you could hear it on the TV side, but in the building, there was a lot of boos. And just kind of the way he handled himself and conducted himself, like they gave him a raise the prior year and guaranteed a little bit more money. And then the Vikings offered him $7 million to stay, and then he went and took $3 million from the Saints. especially with the history the Vikings have with the Saints, it felt like a real slap in the face, but it ended up being a huge benefit for our franchise.
Yeah, you guys definitely got that running back tandem that you guys had last year. Hell, you had 3 great running backs before the name is escaping me of the rookie that you had that went down.
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook, yeah, he had a great season before he started getting those knee problems. It was an ACL, right?
Yeah, it was just a freak ACL against the Lions in Week 4.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the NFL. It happens.
I tell you, both the Saints and the Vikings had both a great running back tandem.
Oh, they really did. I'm really excited to have Dalvin come back this year, but Jerick McKinnon is going to do some special things with the Niners. He didn't really get a chance to be the workhorse kind of back that he wants to be, but considering he came from Georgia Southern as an option quarterback and he really got to learn the position, Kyle Shanahan's going to do some really fun things with Jerick this next year.
Yeah, I definitely like Kyle Shanahan's version of the West Coast offense. I think he's going to fit in just fine there, and he's probably going to get more of those touches that he's looking for because Carlos Hyde's out the door. He's out in Cleveland, right?
Yes, he is. And one interesting tidbit about McKinnon, he's going to be playing with his old college teammate, Matt Breida, who also is a running back for the 49ers.
Oh, my goodness. I just got an alert here on my device here. I hate to break this. Dolphins former head coach, Tony Sparano, 56, has passed away. And he was the current offensive line coach for the Vikings.
Wow, that's a shocker.
Yeah, I just got this on my Bleacher Report. I'm sorry to have to be the first one to break it to you, but I want to get that to you before you got the end of the podcast. Rest in peace, Tony. He was definitely a great offensive line coach. I mean, last year you guys had barely nothing to go with, and you made something out of you made chicken salad out of chicken shit with that offensive line.
Like the Florio reference, well done there, CJ. Yeah, he did a really good job, and as a professional, he's going to be very missed. But man,
I'm sorry to have to be the one to break it to you. That just popped up on my phone. I figured you want to know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's that's just crazy. I mean, the Vikings have gone through some stuff, but man, losing a coach a few days before camp starts, that's terrible. My condolences to everyone who knew him.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that one. So speaking of this offensive line and this offense, hell, this defense has been amazing too. Draft. Who did you guys pick up in the draft? Who was your first round pick?
We ended up with cornerback Mike Hughes out of Central Florida. Uh-huh. And the one thing I really liked about this draft, a lot of Vikings Twitter was torn on it. Some people just hated it, but I loved it because you have a team that already has a lot of established stars. You take guys who have very high potential because you don't have to play them. A guy like Mike Hughes in 2 years is going to be able to take over for Trey Waynes if we can't afford to pay him.
That's true.
Brian O'Neill is going to be ready next year or the year after to probably be our starting left tackle. You've got guys like Jalen Holmes and Adea Aruna, who we drafted on the defensive line, who kind of remind me a little bit of Daniil Hunter. They're raw. They have talent. Put them with the best defensive line coach, Andre Patterson. We've got 2 guys who can be successful starters in the league down the line. And if you want to keep having a successful deep roster, you got to keep drafting guys with potential and trusting your coaches to develop them.
It's very true, and I hate to throw shade on anybody, but if you're going to have a corner out there, I don't care if it's a hat rack. If you got Harrison Smith behind you at safety, you're pretty safe.
Mm-hmm. But with this style of defense that Zimmer likes to run, he likes to run press man a lot. Mm-hmm. And when you run press man, you got to be careful because you got to have guys who are fluid with their hips, and you can beat them on hitches and stuff if you keep running like different route combinations where one formation they run like 3 hitches in a row, and then all of a sudden they hit you with a stop and go. And it's one of those things where you got to be disciplined, and even with Harrison Smith back there, you can still get burned.
Well, isn't that the truth? So we're talking earlier about your wide receiver tandem here, and I don't know if you know this, man. I sent this to you earlier, but I'm a University of Maryland guy. I currently go there. That's my school. I've been a Maryland guy all my life. And one of my favorite players is on your team, and you guys drafted him in the 4th round. Tell me a little about Stefon Diggs, and if you want to go ahead and get into the hell of a play of a hell of a lifetime of a hell of a buzzer beater, then feel free at this point.
Diggs is one of those guys that he's definitely a fan favorite, and Vikings Twitter is going insane on how much Diggs deserves to be paid. There are people comparing him to Antonio Brown. Not saying he's as talented, but just the style of play, that translation makes a lot of sense. You have that paired with the miracle. I think people are a little emotional as far as, hey, Diggs brought us the miracle. We got to pay him, whatever it takes. I'd say if you can get him for about $14 million, you could be looking at a steal, especially with that Brown comparison, because Brown really blossomed after about year 4 or 5, and Diggs keeps improving and improving. The one thing that worries me is when he gets hurt and he's banged up, he's very ineffective.
Truth.
If he has a nagging hamstring injury, you can kiss him goodbye as far as him putting up good numbers, and that's what's really frustrating about the whole topic. But I'll tell you, that miracle play, on Twitter, Eagles fans are just like, anytime we talk about positive, they're like 38-7. Like, guys, you won a Super Bowl. You can stop making fun of us about 38-7. Like, enjoy your Super Bowl. Congratulations. You whipped the crap out of us, and we just didn't have it after that first drive. That's fine. Like, we're good. But, just dealing with like that play on that day, I remember my girlfriend called me and she was like borderline crying right before the play. I'm like, hey, there's time left. We're Vikings fans. We got to at least try and stay positive. And then that play happened, and every single emotion possible hit, like every basic happiness emotion, hands behind the head, on your knees thanking God, crying, anything and everything. It passed through my body within the next half hour.
Every team seems to have that moment in the playoffs where it doesn't even matter if they've never made it to the Super Bowl. If there's one defining moment in a playoff history for a team, I think honestly the Vikings have finally had that moment. As far as positive, I mean, in the past you guys have had, what was it, Gary Anderson missed field goal and
yeah.
But this was definitely
the Hail Mary.
Moment. The Hail Mary. Didn't you guys face the Packers back-to-back Week 17 going into Wild Card Week one time a couple years ago?
Yeah, that was the 2012 season when AP rushed for 2,000 yards.
Yeah, right under the... Oh, God, it felt so bad for AP. Right under the record, too.
Yeah, he really didn't even care. He was just glad that we made the playoffs. And then Christian Ponder couldn't play the next week because he had his arm was black.
Yes,
it was
and
bruised so bad.
You had the read option quarterback come in. God, he's escaping me. He plays like wide receiver now somewhere, I think, right?
Joe Webb. Good old
yes.
Joe Webb.
Yeah, he's actually backup quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, I believe, right now. But I think he's doing like punt returns, every possible thing you can think of. And the dude's versatile. I remember them doing the read option, and quite frankly, the Packers couldn't figure out how to stop it, but they figured it out towards the end.
Yeah, it's one of those really tough things with a guy like Joe Webb. He's not great at throwing the ball, and if you stop the read option, that's your dog and pony show right there. It's done.
Yeah, but if you're going to have somebody that you want to run the read option with, then yeah, I want AP to be there. Although he's much better with the guy under center as opposed to being in the backfield. But still, AP, I mean, that's the best running back of our generation at the very least. I could say that much for a fact.
Oh, definitely. The one downside with him is he really didn't care ever about catching the football, and he never really worked at it. If he would have worked at it at least a little bit, you'd be talking with him amongst the top 3 backs of all time, where as of right now, he's probably going to sit just outside the top 5, even though his running style was about as close to Jim Brown as we'll ever see again.
Hall of Fame bound?
I think you have to. I think he's going to be kind of like a T.O. He's going to have to wait a few years just because of the whole child abuse incident with the switch. But based on talent alone, there's no chance he doesn't get in.
I think he might go in first ballot, to be honest with you. I don't think there's too many running backs, especially if he retired today. 5 years from now, is there any other running backs that retired this year that can even hold his jock?
If AP ends up playing this year and retires after this next season, him and Frank Gore. Because Gore is sneaky, had a really, really good career. It hasn't been as flashy as AP, but Gore's 5th all-time in rushing yards, and he's had a very long, successful career.
Yeah, and he did play in a Super Bowl. I do recall that. It was against the, who was it against? The Baltimore Ravens. That's right. Yeah, but he had he's had a great career, honestly. A very, very sneaky, as you said, but his career with the Colts just hasn't been there. I mean, he's racking up a couple 100-yard games here and there, but like you said, sneaky. He's piling up there. I hope he honestly plays this year. I'd love to see him finish out his career in San Fran, though. It would be great, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Gore is actually signed with the Dolphins, so he's gonna finish his career in Miami, kind of taking it full circle to where it all started. Well,
yes, because he did play in college in Miami. God, I sound like I should have done a little research on that before I started, but I didn't know we were going to talk about Frank Gore. Damn. Just got a couple more questions for you, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time here. Tell me, who's your favorite Minnesota Viking of all time?
Favorite Minnesota Viking of all time? Ooh, that's a really, really tough question.
I got mine.
Probably
I'll tell you as soon as you tell me yours.
It's probably Randy Moss. I remember watching him in college at Marshall when I was 6 and 7, and then my dad, the day of the draft, was like, "Who do you want us to draft?" And Randy Moss was the only name that came out of my mouth. And watching him throughout the years, it was really fun. But there have been a lot of guys who have kind of grabbed my attention. Being a Florida Gator fan, I loved the Percy Harvin pick. I bought his jersey. I bought his jersey minutes after the press conference, and yeah, but Randy Moss is probably number one.
I don't disagree with him being definitely in the top 5 of all times as far as Minnesota Vikings. But I tell you, after watching the Missing Ring series on the America's game for the I think it was the '97 Vikings, my goodness, John Randall has got to be one of the most shit-talking pass rushers I've ever seen in my life, and I love everything that he does. Just watching him on the field, first off, I wouldn't want to mess with that guy. And then when he just comes to the line of scrimmage and he just says random things like regulators mount up and just whatever's in pop culture at the time, it's just, he's hilarious.
Oh, and here's another little tidbit for you. He would get fined 3 times a year, $15,000 to $25,000, because his entire face would be eye black.
Yes, that's all. I was just about to mention that. I never understood, but at least he's not writing messages in it. I mean, that was the Tebow rule, where you couldn't write messages in it. And Ray Lewis did that. Matter of fact, for his final year, he would put all eye black on his face.
Yeah, lo and behold, you can't write John 3:16 on your eye black. Ooh.
Yeah, no kidding. I just got that. Okay, that was pretty good. All right, your favorite football player of all time that isn't a Viking?
Warren Moon, hands down.
I said that isn't a Viking.
Oh, I don't consider him a Viking, even though he was a Viking. I always consider him with the Houston Oilers and the baby blue.
Yeah.
God, that was fun to. I still watch games. I'll find him on YouTube and watch him play. He was incredible, but guy that never played for the Vikings.
Before you continue with that, on the Warren Moon thing, I know you consider him a Oiler, and honestly I do too, but I actually consider him more CFL. I mean, that guy hit some records in the CFL. He's got how many Grey Cups and whatnot? Goodness.
From what I remember, he went 5 for 5. Yeah, and that's what got him into the NFL.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the best. I think he's right now he's an announcer for the Seattle Seahawks, doing color commentary for them, being an analyst. But he's had a hell of a career, and he deserves every accolade he's ever got.
Oh,
go
absolutely.
ahead. Your favorite non-Viking. Go ahead. I apologize.
Probably John Elway.
That's a good pick.
I remember watching that '98 Super Bowl when he got his first ring. And everything felt different about that game. John Elway helicoptering in the third quarter.
Oh, God, that was an amazing hit.
It was an amazing hit, and it was just the epitome of his career, that he had given so much to try and get to that point. And then he got to hold the trophy, and it felt like a Hollywood movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I would love to agree with you on that, but here in Baltimore, we kind of have a thing against John Elway. I'm not sure if you know the story behind that.
Oh, I know the story. I understand.
Yeah, we definitely don't like Elway much here, but I definitely respect the career that Elway had, and honestly, he's another one with the chicken salad situation. Other than having the running back that he had there, Terrell, what's his name? God, I'm blanking.
Terrell Davis,
yeah. That was the only real weapon that he had up until the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to come and comment a tweet at me and say, "Oh, he had other weapons, blah blah blah." No, he really made the best of what he had around him. Had a hell of a defense going on.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. His receivers that year were Ed McCaffrey, who was good. Rod Smith was an undrafted free agent. He did have Shannon Sharp. But until he got Terrell Davis and Shannon Sharp, he really didn't have anything, and he took a bunch of chicken shit to the Super Bowl 3 times before that.
Yeah, Shannon Sharp, I mean, how could I forget him first off? But if I'm not mistaken, he was supposed to be heavily involved in that, and then he tore his MCL. In the Super Bowl itself, like, he was talking, I'm going to be the MVP, I'm going to get so many targets, it's going to be amazing. But then, I think it was in the first quarter, he ended up tearing his MCL, and he had to sit on the sidelines and watch the rest of it.
Was that the first or the second Super Bowl?
I believe it was the one where John Elway actually got the. I'm sorry, you're right. It was the one where he got the MVP.
So yeah, that would have been against the Falcons, which the Vikings should have been in, but we won't go there.
Yeah. Let's thank Mr. Anderson for that one.
No, it's not even Gary's fault. Gary missed a kick. Kickers miss kicks. That's okay.
But if you're gonna miss your first kick of the year, damn, don't let it be there.
Oh no, I'm not gonna argue that, but it's so easy to blame Gary. But I actually rewatched the game a few months ago to try and understand better of what happened.
That defense was getting crushed.
The Vikings got the ball back with 1:20 left. They had 2 timeouts. They're driving. They're on their own 43. It's 3rd and 2. Vikings still have a timeout. There's 40 seconds left. And Dennis Green takes a knee.
Yep.
That is why we lost that game.
I can recall a similar situation about the whole knee taking. The 2012 divisional round, 2012-2013. I know Florio would probably argue with me about it, but there was the Broncos versus the Ravens, and there's 30 seconds left on the clock. You have Peyton Manning in the Broncos, and he takes a knee and lets it go into an overtime, and that is what sealed the Ravens being on it, go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by Florio debate you, just because it was, to me, that's a little different. The Vikings were already driving, and they were putting together some plays, and then on 3rd down, they take a knee. To take a knee to kind of calm the momentum down, because that Jacoby Jones catch changed everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So taking the knee makes some sense. You want to calm everything down, go into overtime, take a deep breath, all will be good. We can still win this thing. If you throw a pick right there, then that's just traumatic.
Yeah, that's true, but at the same time, I mean, the announcers even made this. They said, you have Peyton Manning, you have a couple timeouts I think they had on the clock, and you're not even going to try. I would have definitely at least tried to throw it up to Demaryius, or maybe even get Julie Edelman over the middle for 30 yards and see if we can kick a field goal. They had a pretty damn good kicker, and they're in altitude.
Oh, that's a good point.
So, I mean, honestly, you could probably make a 99-yard field goal in altitude and mile high. Jesus, I could probably catch it from here.
Yeah, more than likely.
All right, final question I got for you, man. Coming up on fantasy football this season, you a player?
Oh yeah, I'm usually in about 6 leagues.
Oh man, I can only do 2 myself. I run one, and then I probably join in probably my work one is what I'm going to do this year. Give me some top picks that you would, if you had to pick right now, gun to your head, who would be some of your top picks?
It depends on your strategy. I try to go, because most leagues I play are full point PPR. I try to go either 0 running back or I get pass catching running backs. Gurley's probably number 1 for me. Le'Veon Bell is just too big of a question mark until he actually shows up and shows that, hey, I'm going to be ready week 1. I still like David Johnson. People are going to sleep on him because of the wrist injury last year. If you can get him at like pick 6 or 7, you're getting a steal. Because last year he was the consensus number 1. Antonio Brown, if you can get him anywhere outside the top 3, take him, go kiss some babies, shake some hands, and praise God that you got him there.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
If I'm around 6 or 7, though, and Aaron Rodgers is there, I'm probably going to take him, to be honest with you. I like to get a really good quarterback, especially because I'm in quarterback-heavy leagues. But, yeah, I don't disagree with the Antonio Brown. I would definitely pick him around the mid of the first round.
Yeah.
Running backs, I'm just amazed that they're still as powerful as they are in these like PPR and just standard leagues.
Oh yeah, the top flight running backs are still super good point scorers just because they do have that pass catching element, and it's that they're not treated the same anymore as they used to. They're not running 40 times a game, you know. They're running 20 times a game. They're catching 5 or 6 balls, and they're learning how to get down and not take a lot of hits, and that I think is part of it.
I think my first running back on the board, if I had to pick right now, gun to my head, it would probably be Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, that's a really good point. He's just going to want to tear the NFL to shreds because of everything that happened to him last year.
And he's going to be in every game unless he gets injured. Knock on wood. God, now people are going to say, oh, you had to say that, CJ. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, just don't ruin my Dynasty League because he's my centerpiece.
Yeah, he had a hell of a year last year when he came back from his suspensions. And if I had to pick a rookie right now, honestly, that I'd pick probably first or second round, I want to say I'd pick DJ Moore, another Maryland guy. He had nobody throwing to him, and he somehow still became, I think it was a second wide receiver taken off of the board in the first round. He's going to have a great quarterbacking, Cam Newton throwing to him, and it's going to be great. He's great on the end around too, so he's going to get some rushing yards for you.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a second-string linebacker throwing to you like he did a couple years back, and you still put up good numbers, you're pretty good. The one thing that I really like about it is he's got Norv Turner, and Norv Turner did a really good job of utilizing Stephon Diggs, and DJ Moore kind of fits that Diggs mold. So if Cam Newton can at least stay semi-accurate, DJ Moore can have a huge year.
I'm very curious to see how Norv Turner is going to get along with Cam Newton. I mean, that seems like clash of personalities, a clash of styles, but I feel like this is, if they're ever going to have an opportunity to get Cam to stay in the pocket a little more, this is going to be it.
Oh, absolutely. The biggest issue that they have is their offensive line. Luckily, they took Matt Khalil from us because after his rookie year, Khalil was a big pile of dog crap. And Khalil as your left tackle is not good. So Cam's going to need to not take 7-step drops and need to get the ball out quick. But he's also got Norv Turner, so he's going to be taking 7-step drops all the time.
That's the truth, man. All right, look, we've been going on for 30 minutes, so I don't want to take any more of your time. Tyler, thank you very much for being a good guest for me today. Got a feeling your Vikings are going to make it into the playoffs just based on the roster you have alone. We didn't even talk about your new quarterback. That's probably, we could have a second episode just for your new quarterback coming in. But wishing you the best. I don't believe in luck, but luck is for losers. I'm wishing you the best.
Thanks a lot, CJ. It was a pleasure being here. We'll have to do this again soon.
I agree, man. Have a good one. All right, big shout out to Tyler Forness at The Real Forno on Twitter. That's at TheRealForno. Great participant today. I really appreciate his time, and thank you very much, Tyler, for coming on board. So next week, I'd like to see if I can get another one of my friends, one of my family members, anybody else who would want to talk about their sports team. So if you're interested, tweet at me. At the CJ Newman. That's TheCJNeuman. And I'm going to go ahead and upload this to YouTube as soon as I possibly can to get this edited down. And we'll see what goes on next week. Maybe I can get a Redskins fan. Maybe I can get a Ravens fan. Who knows? I'll let you guys know a little ahead of time before we get the interview done, though. So that's been the debut edition of the Second String Podcast. Thank you very much.